This CRF250F is a terrible bike for you if you want a lightweight race bike. This bike came out in 2019, and it is not the same thing as the CRF250R, 250RX, or the 250X. Those are all liquid-cooled motocross or enduro race bikes. This is what took over for the CRF230F. It's a 4-stroke air-cooled trail bike that is meant for beginners. And even though it takes place of the 230, it's actually more similar, in my opinion, to the XR250, which Honda stopped making in 2004, as far as the power and the size goes. So the seat height is about 35 inches, which is good if you're about 5'6" to 6 foot, depending on your inseam length. But if it's a wide range of riders, and this engine is about as beginner friendly as it gets. It has really good torque right off idle, and it's really smooth all the way up until about 8,000 RPM. So you shift it into first, second gear, and you can just chug along all day, just, and it's just buttery smooth. They went from the 6-speed in a 230 engine to a 5-speed in this, which I don't particularly like, but if you're just doing casual riding and you're not going from crazy technical slow speeds to high speeds cruising on the road, it's not that big of a deal. First gear is nice and low, which is great for learning how to use the clutch, and fifth gear is still high enough to cruise at 40-50 miles an hour. This is not a dual sport street legal bike, even though you could convert it if you really wanted to. It's super nice and quiet. So it's not intimidating, and it's not going to bother your neighbors nearly as much as a race bike that has a really loud and obnoxious exhaust. Moving on to the suspension, it is beefed up, in my opinion, compared to the 230. It's plush if you're a beginner in the 150 to 200 pound range, but it's not going to bottom out really easily unless you're riding third, fourth gear, more aggressive on faster trails. That sweet spot is like the second to third gear trails at like 10 to 15 miles an hour. And this thing it's pretty overbuilt, which is why it weighs, I believe, 265 pounds, which compared to other bigger bikes, it's pretty heavy, but you don't really notice it once you get going because the center of gravity is so low. And part of the reason why it weighs about 15 pounds more than the CRF230F is because of the fuel injection, slightly bigger, longer chassis. The forks are a little bit beefier. Everything's just a little bit beefier, which makes it more planted, a little more stable, and a little more durable, especially if you're a bigger guy over 200 pounds. And going back to the power, it has roughly 20 horsepower, but that number doesn't really mean a whole lot. You can have 20 horsepower, and that's plenty for riding on the trails for 99% of us. What's more important is the torque and how it comes on. And the torque curve is really nice, like I said, from idle all the way up to about 7,000 to 8,000 RPM. It's super smooth, and this makes it easier to ride faster and longer. So if you're to ride a race bike with snappy power and stiff suspension, you might get exhausted in like 10-15 minutes on the trail, where this, you can ride it for a couple hours and be tired, but you're not going to be like super tensed up and your arms are pumped up so you can't even hang on to the handlebars. So if fatigue is a concern, this is a great bike to start on. And the other major thing is the fuel injection on this. I've spent quite a few years tuning, troubleshooting carbs and making them run well, but I'm kind of tired of dealing with them. So this is why we started upgrading our trail bikes to fuel injection, and I really like it because it always starts right away, whether it's cold or hot. So I can start it up right now. It's about 35 degrees out right now. The engine is cold. I haven't started it today. I haven't started it for probably a week. And it starts right up. And this way, I don't have to deal with any messy jets, the carb clogging up over the winter. It doesn't mean this can't have problems, but it's a lot less likely based on my experience with fuel-injected motorcycles and dirt bikes. And combine that with the electric start, this is about as frustration-free as it gets. If you're looking for your first dirt bike, or maybe your lady wants to ride. This is a great bike to start on if you're 5'6" or taller, or if you have extra long legs and want a full-size bike, because the full-size wheels compared to the 125 back here, they handle the trails better because they roll over the logs and rocks and stuff a little bit easier. And if you're just getting started in dirt biking and don't want to break the bank, or you don't want to get hurt right away, I want you to download my beginner's quick start guide. You can get that by clicking the link in the description below. I'm Kelly Fager from Motocross Hideout. Learn more, ride more.